Hey, I'm Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to Music is Not a Genre, the interview edition. This is the 25th edition of my interview sub-series. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening. Please don't forget you can support this podcast and my music and everything I do at patreon.com/musicisnotagenre or anchor.fm/musicisnotagenre. My public hub is youtube.com/Nick DiMatteo. Or you can get everything you want from nickdimatteo.com. With me today is Danny Burstein. He is a New York City actor, period. Danny, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay, good. Getting over a little cold, or I've been sick for about a week, but feeling good.
Did you have COVID or
Actually,
did it that bad?
What's crazy is they said, no, you don't. And then the PCR changed its classification, and apparently I did. It's pretty darn mild case, but it feels still a little, schmutzy in here. So,
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. How are you?
I'm okay. My computer decided to be a little funky
Oh boy. Okay.
Morning. And so I am just doing this from my phone. Normally I do it at my computer, my desktop. I'm trying to find the best place to do this, but I'm just going to wander around my apartment a little bit. I'll put you there.
This is kind of makes it exciting. It's a bit of like an action film, and it's one of those kind of verite where the camera follows you down the hallway while you're talking. So, we can make it work.
Exactly. That's what I was going for.
Yeah, exactly. I figured. Yeah, a lot of prep for this.
Yeah.
So
is this clear? Is it picking up or doing anything like
every now and then it'll freeze a little, but otherwise we're pretty good. Let me just note 7 minutes. All right.
I'm gonna get the best damn shot for you.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to my apartment, by the way.
It's lovely.
Thank you. You're lovely.
I see. Oh, wow. That's so nice. I see you have a Queen's shirt on. What's that about?
I do, for Queen, because I'm a big Queen, and because I'm a big theater queen, and I went to Queen's College. I'm a proud graduate of Queen's College.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my dad taught at Queen's College for 53 years. He taught ancient Greek philosophy there.
Oh, my
God. There are 3 boys in my family, and the rule was, graduated high school, you're going to Queens, and that was it. And we all went to Queen's College, and it was great. I had a great education there, and that's pretty much. I was lucky enough when I was a kid. I got into the High School of Performing Arts, and that set me on my path. And then after that, I went to Queen's College, and I met this incredible guy named Ed Greenberg there, and he set me off on my path. He was my mentor. He ran the St. Louis Muni. He was the executive producer out there. And he also opened up Lincoln Center, the musical theater of Lincoln Center, with Richard Rodgers. So he was kind of very famous for that. Wonderful director, wonderful teacher. And when I was 19, he said, you got something, baby. And, one of those old time producers, he said, why don't you come out to the Muni and I'll put you in the season, in the ensemble. And, when I was 19, he gave me my equity card. The rest is history.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So did you live in Queens as well, or?
I did. I'm originally from the Bronx. My dad, we were living in the Bronx at that time. And then when I was 5, that's when my dad got the job teaching there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm reporting from Queens right now, so
Oh, really? Where specifically?
Astoria.
Oh, in Astoria. Wonderful.
Yeah, Catherine and I've been here a little over 2 years. We were in Long Island City for a year before that. And,
not far. Yeah.
Have history in Sunnyside like 20 years ago. So
Yeah, I lived in Jackson Heights for a while. Very close.
Oh, to that. Nice. One of my kids is obsessed with Jackson Heights because they read that it is the most diverse neighborhood in like most cities in the world or something.
It is in the world. It is the most diverse area in the world. Jackson Heights, Queens.
Pretty incredible. Yeah.
It is incredible. I agree.
I will start with the question I always start with my guests, which is, how do we know each other?
We met in the gutter. Where did It was Rikers Island. And all I remember about you, Nick, is that you had very soft hands. That's it.
Yeah, I have a special lotion I use that, you know. Yeah.
We met at Jackie and Shannon's house. Jackie and Shannon Arnold. We met at their house. And it was, what was it? Were we watching the Super Bowl? Something like that?
Yeah, it was the Super Bowl. That's right.
Yeah.
So back in
Yeah.
February. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember meeting you and your wife, and we were sitting next to each other on the couch and just talking about the business. And it was lovely. We had a very nice time.
It was I love them. And Catherine's known Jackie for over 20 years. And it's, you know, it was a fun party because there were a lot of people there I didn't know.
Right.
And, you know, it was one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, some of these people I recognize, you know, but I have no idea from where or something like that. And it was sort of this realization, you know, a day or two later, I was like, I think I was talking to a guy who you know, and it turned out to be you. And I'm like, oh man, that's so cool, you know, and it was a great conversation, but yeah.
No.
So so that's our long history of knowing each other.
Very.
Yeah, you're really near and dear, you know.
After this,
yes, that's right. That's the hope. Yeah. Now, can you? So this is my other question. Yeah, I do so much preparation. How can you tell me? And you kind of started this a little bit earlier, which was great. And I do actually have a question about that if it comes up again. But can you tell the folks out there in music is not a genre land what your story is, however you interpret that?
Like I said, I'm originally from the Bronx, and when I was 5, we moved to Queens. And both my parents are teachers. My dad teaches ancient Greek philosophy, and my mom teaches painting. And when I was younger, they gave me books to read, and I hated to read. That's the truth. I just hated reading books. And my dad would give me this. He said, this is a fantastic book. You're going to love it. Just couldn't. After like 10, 15 pages, I'd go, I'm bored. And I wouldn't finish the book. And so he eventually gave me a play. And I read it straight through. And I loved the fact that these guys were talking to one another, and it sounded like real life. They were angry, and they were happy, and they were loving and flippant, and they cursed sometimes. And so he just kept giving me play after play. And that started me reading when I was younger. I was, about 9, 10, where I really started to get into plays. And then in junior high school in Queens at a place called Parsons Junior High School, which was kind of a hellhole. I saw people cut with razor blades and shit like that. It was really, really an awful school. We used to call it Parsons Prison. But I had a wonderful teacher there, an English teacher, who said, hey, I think you got something, one of those kinds of things. And we did a production of The Me Nobody Knows together. And it's this wonderful musical that was from the early 70s. And he said, you should go to the High School of Performing Arts. And I said, great, what's the High School of Performing Arts? And he explained it to me. And he told me that Liza Minnelli went there and Ben Farine went there. And I said, well, it's fantastic. What do I have to do? He said, well, you have to perform a couple of monologues. And I said, great, what's a monologue? And he explained that to me. And that was my audition. And the year I auditioned, I was 13, well over 4,000 kids auditioned, and 127 made it in. And I had a good day. I got lucky, and that changed my life, that audition, that day. And I was accepted. And I remember the very first day, a guy named Jerry Eskow, who ran the drama department of the High School of Performing Arts. He was one of Brando's standbys in Streetcar, and he also directed Most Happy Fella in London. A wonderful guy. He told us all, we're just first day of school. He said, if you don't want to be an actor for the rest of your life, there's the door. And we all stayed. And, I was excited. I was kind of intrigued by that. And it also was the only thing that I really, really loved doing more than anything, And so I had no idea. And to this day, I have no idea what I would do if I hadn't become an actor, because I pretty much am terrible at everything else. So I was lucky enough, and over the course of those 4 years, we had some amazing teachers there, and that set me on my path. And we had a wonderful we had a wonderful class, and I just got very, very lucky. And then on to Queens College, as I mentioned later. And then after Queens College, I thought, well, I'm going to take the world by storm. I'm going to be the next Marlon Brando, And everybody, all the casting directors would look at my resume when I was 22, and they'd say, well, that's nice. You have all these musicals on your resume from the Muni. So you do musicals. And I'd say, no, well, yes, but no, I also do plays, and I also do film and TV. I can do anything. And they said, well, you don't have any experience in that department, so sorry. So it was a year of that. And then after a year of that, I went and got my graduate degree, my master's at UC San Diego, partly because I thought it would help me in that department to put some dramatic roles on my resume and to get the training that I needed maybe for that kind of stuff. And also partly because my parents said, well, if you have your master's, you can teach. So I thought, okay, I'll kill two birds if I do that. And I did. And I came back here in 1990 and just started working and never stopped.
Wow.
Yeah. I got very, very lucky along the way. That's the truth. Very, very lucky.
Well, and I always feel like luck comes partly from just being there and active and being prepared for the opportunities that arise,
Absolutely. I honestly feel that everybody gets their chance. It's just a matter of whether you're ready for that chance when it comes along, So you have to be ready. You have to keep preparing. You have to keep working and having the right audition material. And then, being a little bit lucky. I'm jumping way ahead, but, I was 42, 43 when I got a call to do The Drowsy Chaperone. But that only came about because I was doing jobs, I was working, but I was very much an actor under the radar, happily, but very much under the radar. And then a friend of mine called and he said, can you do me a favor? Can you do a reading for me tomorrow? It's insane, but I just booked a commercial and and it's tomorrow and I have to take it and it's a lot of money. But this is, I thought of you because it's, this role has to play like 7 different characters and with 7 different accents. And he said, maybe you can do it. Would you please give it a shot? And, it's tomorrow. And I thought, oh, Jesus. Okay. All right. Yeah, sure. Sure. And I did that reading the next day. I don't even remember what the reading was. But in the audience of that reading was the producer of The Drowsy Chaperone, who saw me and called me the next day and said, listen, I saw you in this reading and I thought you were wonderful. And I think there's a role in this show that you could do. And would you come and do the reading of it? And I was on the phone listening to this guy, Roy Miller, who's no longer with us, lovely guy. And I was about to say no, and my wife was sitting right next to me. And she heard the whole conversation. And I was about to say no. Drowsy Chaperones, what's the dumbest title I've ever heard, And she went like this, do it. It sounds good. And I went, okay, yeah, great. Yeah, I'll do it. Great. I'll see you, next week. And I wound up doing that first reading and then other readings and then out of town and then in New York and one thing led to another. But that was the first show that I would say that put me on the map where people were all of a sudden going, aren't you that guy from Drowsy Chaperone? Where have you been? Like, who are you? Well, I've been right here, just working, doing my thing. And that's, you have to have that kind of luck, but it's just about being there and saying yes. I know students always ask me, how do you start out? And I tell them, say yes to everything within moderation, of course. Don't do porn. Don't do porn, kids. But I do, say yes to everything. Go to readings. Go to every audition that you can. Get that kind of experience. So it's not such a big deal. So every audition isn't the audition. That monkey on your back. And so you get good at it and get good at letting it go and moving forward and getting better at it. It's all just a stupid skill. It's a terrible way to get a job, auditioning, but it's what we do. And so you have to make the best of it. It's super, nerve wracking, but, after a while you sort of go, well, I think they need me more than I need them. And I'm just going to go in there and have all the confidence in the world. And I'm going to teach them how to do this role correctly. And that's the attitude I started going in there with. At first, of course, all you are is nervous. And then you start to develop techniques to making the audition your own, making it work for yourself. And so you can move on with them afterwards. The best kinds of auditions are the ones where you can do the damn thing and then walk out and then move on to the next one or move on to something else and forget about it, and then it's icing on the cake. It
is, kind of diminishing the impact of each individual audition. And at the same time, you're getting all this skill that makes every subsequent one feel like, this is just what I do. It's a part of the job.
Exactly. That's right.
Now, you mentioned students. Do you teach now, or?
I do master classes and that kind of thing. I've done it for years. When I was a kid, I did Merrily We Roll Along at Queens College that my mentor, Ed Greenberg, directed.
Right.
And it had just closed on Broadway like 3 months before. And there were all these different versions of the scripts, floating around. And it was, a famous flop on Broadway and heartbreaking for the cast and everybody. And yet my teacher wanted to do it. And I was cast as Franklin Shepard. And I thought, wow, okay. And I read the script and I thought, how the hell do you make sense of this? The guy is such a shit. Why would anybody want to follow him on this journey? And I had so many questions about the show, and I didn't know what to do with the role. And a friend of mine said, well, you know who you should ask? You should ask Stephen Sondheim. And I thought, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, sure, I should ask Stephen Sondheim. And he went, no, here's his address. I have it. And so I wrote him a letter and I asked him all these questions out of the blue. And within 5 days, I got a letter back from him saying, dear Danny, all those questions would have to be answered in a letter the size of War and Peace. So look, here's my number. Give me a call and we'll talk. And when I got him on the phone, he said, look, let's just get together. We'll sit down and talk and we'll figure it out. And okay, I thought, and in a couple of weeks, I went to his townhouse in Turtle Bay. And as I was walking in, Lapine was walking out, introduced him. They're working on this show called Sunday in the Park. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I never heard of him before. I was like, I never heard of the show. He walked in, he said, sit down on the couch. I said, I'll be right back. A minute later, he came back with a carafe of white wine, like that size, put it on the table between us, put 2 glasses between us, and sat opposite me and said, okay, what do you want to know? And for 3 hours, we talked about not only Merrily, but we talked about his career. We talked about theater in general. He gossiped like crazy about different people. It was fascinating and wonderful. And he was giving me a mini course in theater in those 3 hours. And Oscar Hammerstein had done that for him when he was, I could get very emotional about it because it was such a beautiful thing for him to do. And that's why I teach. That's why I do classes. That's why I give back. Because if Stephen Sondheim could do it, then certainly Danny Burstein could do it too. And I think that's what it's about at the end of the day, giving back and doing kind things and keeping our art form vital and interesting and relevant, and all those good things.
And that's beautiful. And I think that, you know, so many people I know in the business, whether they're struggling or doing fine or something above that, you get so caught up in the career aspect of things or in the work itself, and you're immersed in that, you know, you don't often think of, well, what can I do to kind of pass this on? And when someone, right, like Hammerstein or Sondheim can do that, can devote that much time to someone they don't even know,
right,
to really pass on their wisdom and knowledge, and even just the love, like being in that room with the love of what they've created and what you're doing with it or what your interest is in it, that's infectious. And it really, to me, kind of creates these tendrils of connection that are what keep what can be a very, you know, brutal and difficult business at times so vibrant and exciting and alive, because you know there are people there working at every level who love what they do so much that they want to share that love with others.
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
yeah, and it's great that you're doing the same thing. Do you feel like the fact that your parents or teachers had an influence on that as well?
Absolutely. I think teaching is the most noble of professions. I would actually, in my emails to Steve, I would sometimes call him Rabbi, which means
right,
which he loved, and he thought that if he wasn't a songwriter, that he would be a teacher. So, yeah.
Now you mentioned, well, there were a couple questions here.
Yeah, please.
So you mentioned this, I'm fascinated by, because I had an acting teacher back in the early O's who his philosophy was be judicious in what you say yes to, in the sense that if you say yes to everything, you may be cutting off some other thing that you know, or whatever. And at the time it made sense to me because I didn't really know what I was doing and kind of trying to figure out, well, you know, I want to do this, but I don't want to do that. But the more I kind of lived in the world of auditioning and all of that, I realized that there are things that you're saying no to that you have no idea where they might lead, and that you can continue to say yes to things until you see where they're going. And if it's a feeling like, oh, this is really taking hold in me and I really want to do this, then you go for it and you know, blow it out and do a great job. But to say no just off the bat because there's some preconceived notion about how something might fit into your career, to me, I grew to believe that it seemed like something where you may have just passed up an opportunity that led you to the next thing that would be where, you know, you want to go. But how do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what kind of like what I was saying earlier about saying yes to everything when you're starting out, especially when you need to make connections, because it's just as you said, you never know. As I've gotten older, there are things that I've been offered that I know, like everybody thinks I'm a singer. I'm not really a singer at all. My wife was a singer. You know, she could open her mouth and, you know, like it was, you know, gorgeous. My old line about that was, you know, she opened her mouth and her heart fell out. That's how she sounded. For me, you know, I never took singing lessons per se. I was just an actor, and they said, "Do you sing?" And at an audition, I would go, "Yes, I do." Not really having ever taken lessons. Do you tap? I remember I did Anything Goes in community theater. Do you tap? Yes, I do. I'd never tapped before, but I, got myself into a class in New York. There was a big tap dancing class led by a guy named Phil Black at his studios. And I, ran and crammed tap dancing lessons. And that's pretty much how I learned to do things. But as I've gotten older, there are things that I've been offered, as I was saying, like, do you want to sing with the Israeli Symphony? I go, no, because they heard me sing, unless I'm singing something that sounds like a Jew from the Bronx, they're not going to want to hear that.
Right.
I mean, I don't have one of those pretty voices. That's not me. I'm a storyteller kind of voice, a character actor who happens to sing. And if they want that, that's fine. But most of the time, they, when you sing with the symphony, they want you to sing really pretty too, and that's not what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's so I've learned to, as I've gotten older, go, nope, you know what? I don't even like doing that. Like cabaret. I don't like doing cabaret, getting up there and singing with everybody. It's not me. It makes me uncomfortable. I remember when I was younger, I was at this evening where I was part of the evening, singing a song in this cabaret, and all these incredible artists, Marsha, well, probably way before your time, but Brent Barrett and Marsha Lewis and all these incredible singers were on the lineup that night. And these are people who are really good at it. They were backstage going, shit, what the hell is that line? They were crazy nervous. And I'm thinking, I don't even like doing this. What am I doing here? But it was a big thing for me, that moment where I went, wait a minute, I don't even have to do this. I'm done. I'm not singing at anybody's cabaret anymore. And, I turned down everybody from Steve Sondheim to Hal Prince. And it's just not my thing. I'll do it in a show where I've had 5 weeks to rehearse that one number in context. That makes sense to me. But doing it just standing there naked, just not my thing. I just never had it. Never had that thing. So I learned to say no to the things that made me that uncomfortable. But things that I've never tried before, that are exciting to me, that scare me a little bit, that absolutely. I'll dive right into that. Where I have no idea where this is going to go. Absolutely.
So and I guess a lot of that comes from you've done so much that I think part of our journey is we sort of maybe know who we are as artists, but not really until we've tested ourselves in the waters, and then the world kind of tells us what fits often, and then our inner kind of response will say, oh, this feels like me. So the more you're in the business, you're like, that just doesn't feel like me. Maybe I would have done it if I, needed the break or the money, 20 years ago, but not at this point. Right.
Right. And I got to a point where I realized, this was very early on, where I realized I hated doing the same damn thing over and over again. And the business wants you to do that. Everybody wants you to, fit into this little, circle, this pigeonhole. And I just went, I don't like that. And I kept telling my agents, you have to think about me differently than any other client you have, because I don't want to do what I did before. I want to do something completely different. Every time after Drowsy Chaperone, I got all these offers for Latin Lovers, and I said no to all of them. After South Pacific, I got all these offers for New York-y wheeler dealer kind of guys. And after Fiddler, every Jew in the world, that kind of thing. And I thought, no. But I remember years ago, and I told my agents this when we first started working together in 1990. One of my agents, Phil Edelman, sent me an email. He said, I think I've got it. It was a movie an indie movie called Nor'easter, and the character was a gay deaf pedophile that worked in a pizza shop in Maine. And I thought, that's me, you know, that's what I want to do. It's completely different
Yes.
from anything I'd ever done. And it's so out there and different and wacky, and it meant so much kind of introspection and work. And you know, I studied ASL for 2 months before I wound up doing the film. I had 3 teachers helping me. It was a lot of work, but you know, I wound up doing the film and having a great time doing it because it was so different. And yeah, that's what I want to do, challenge myself artistically that way.
I love that. What was the film?
Nor'easter.
Nor'easter, got it.
Storm, yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that because it's just that idea that it is very easy to just keep doing what you do, especially if you know, are being asked to do those roles. So it takes some, you know, courage and, like you say, to challenge yourself, but also to challenge the, you know, stability of your career, to say, I'm going to do something that no one is looking for me to do because I want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I wound up turning down a lot of work when I really could have used the money, you know, and trying to raise 2 boys. Yeah, it was when I really needed the money, but things turned out, and things turned up also when I needed them. South Pacific came along, and I was with that show for 2.5 years on Broadway, and that paid for my kids' college. You know, so that was, you know, just, I've been lucky. I just got lucky.
So this is a question that I have a personal investment in, and I asked Jackie this, and I'm very curious about your answer. And I'll tell you what Jackie's answer was as kind of a kickoff. As you know, well, being, you know, in Moulin Rouge with her, she is a musical theater person. But her claim is she's not really into musicals. She came from a very strong music background, and this is what got her into there. And I know for myself, I have often tended to keep the music and the acting separate because I'm so passionate about the music in a very specific way that's what I want to do. When I do musicals, it's because they just happen and they, you know, and that works. But the acting has been sort of this, I would rather just do acting because I find for myself that the performance of acting is stronger when you're focusing on just acting, and the performance of music is stronger when you're focusing on just the music. That's not necessarily always true. That's my personal, you know, thing. But you have kind of alluded to the fact that you say that you're not a singer, and that you have certainly pursued other forms of acting, and you know, I know you're just shooting something. How would you say your general opinion was or experience was of musicals when you started, and how is it now?
My opinion of musicals when I started. Well, you know, I never chose to do musicals. I liked musicals when I was a kid. I don't come from a particularly musical family. You know, nobody plays an instrument at home or anything like that, or did much singing. And, you know, I wasn't one of those families. My wife grew up, they all sang in the car, you know, that kind of thing, like the King family. Me, I've none of that. None of that. You know, go to your room. That was about as much singing as we had. But when I was a kid, somebody said they were doing Oklahoma, and, you know, would you like some experience in community theater? And I was 15, and I was already a year into the High School of Performing Arts. And so I auditioned with a song, but I had no experience. And then when I got when I started acting professionally, I never chose to do musicals per se. I was, you know, thinking about, as I mentioned, being a legit straight actor in plays. And I couldn't make a living at it. And I thought I knew I had to be smarter about it. And I had friends who were in musicals on Broadway and off Broadway, and they had long-term contracts and they were getting paid pretty well. And the musicals tended to last longer. Now, I loved musicals as a kid. I loved cast recordings. My parents had some cast recordings, old Nelson Eddy and Jeanette MacDonald's version of Oklahoma, and a city center version from the 60s of Finian's Rainbow. Musicals like that, My Fair Lady. But not many, but a lot of, old, very, very old musicals. Anyway, Gilbert and Sullivan is what I was trying to think of.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
And that were wonderful. And that was the extent of my parents' cast recordings.
Right.
There weren't many, but the ones that were there were pretty interesting and good. So I liked listening to them, but I listened to mostly rock and roll. I listened to the Beatles and the Eagles and Steve Miller Band and groups like that, and James Taylor and folk rock and Carole King. I remember when I was 5 in 1969, we had a tiny little black and white television, and it was the news, and it was coming from England saying that the Beatles had just been on top of the roof of was it Abbey Road or is it Apple Records? It was that they were on the roof of Apple Records, and they showed about 15 seconds of them singing Get Back. And I was 5. All I knew were, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, that kind of thing. And I heard Get Back as a 5-year-old, and I walked up to the television and I grabbed it, like that. And I thought to myself, I didn't say it out loud, but I thought to myself, that is the greatest song I have ever heard in my life. 5-year-old Danny. And that's kind of how music got me, because of the Beatles, because of Get Back in that moment, on the news. And that's when I started listening to music more and more on the radio, and all the hits of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Yeah. Those were the ones that really got me into music.
I have to cut in real quick because
Please.
This is an amazing coincidence. I'm in a Beatles cover band now. I've been doing it for years.
That's fantastic.
And my dad, who has been a performer his entire life, nightclubs and all those kinds of things.
That's cool.
Singer, piano player, has told me often that the very first song I ever sang live in public was at a gig he was doing. It was Get Back.
Really?
And and I sang it because it had just hit the charts at the time. I was a year and a half old.
Yeah.
And I only knew how to say JoJo and Get Back, and that was pretty much it. But it was enough for him. And so I have a real special connection to that song.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's it. It did it for me as well. And then, as I got older, as I said, musicals chose me, and I enjoyed doing them when I would do them. And they would generally last longer than a play and pay a little more. And so, it was a decent way to make a living. But, at the same time, I always fell back on doing, television and films and plays as well.
Sure.
Because, that's where I initially wanted to be. But nowadays, people ask me all the time, what do you like doing most?
Right.
And for me, it's just whatever's the most interesting project. When Alex Timbers asked me to meet him to talk about Moulin Rouge, we met in a diner on 72nd Street, and he put the script in front of me. He said, read that, and I'll see you back here in a week. Let me know what you think about this character and this show. And I read it, and I thought, oh, that's unlike anything I'd ever done before. It was kind of dirty, sexy father figure who was mysterious, yet, passionate, and a producer, a brilliant guy, an impresario. And I thought, and I went back a week later and I said, yeah, I'd like to do that because it's unlike anything I'd ever done before. But I have that same story with loads of different projects that I've said yes to, because they were so different and fun. And I thought, oh, this is kind of scary. I really want to give it a shot and play, because I want to find a way in. That's basically what I'm always looking for. If I can sort of see, if I read the script, or I hear a song over and over again, whatever it is, I have to get a spark where I sort of go, yeah, okay, what if I did this to get in there, and that will spark my imagination, I know, in rehearsal. And then I read as much as possible about the project. If it's a revival, I read as much about the project before, from other productions, and learn as much as I can, and bring all that stuff into the first rehearsal as if I'm, wearing it in a backpack, and then go from there, just to do something new and different and with the role. Or if it's never been done before, then just making it up. But it's always got to be, for me, it's got to be something new and exciting. Having said that, doesn't always work that way, and sometimes somebody will offer you, $20,000 to go and work on this project, and you go, and you only have to be there for a week, and you go, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Sure. That'll take care of things for a little while and pay for my vacation, when I need it.
What were you working on yesterday?
Yesterday, I was working on a film, and I'm still working on it. A film called Molly and Max. Guy Aristotle Ostny from Saturday Night Live, who's very, very funny, and Zasha Mamet. Those are the two people who are the leads of the film.
Cool.
And Michael Litvak is the director, and I'm just having a lot of fun on it. It's just, in fact, I'm playing a couple of characters on it. One of them is Aristotle's father, who's a fish.
Who's a fish?
Yeah, it's a love story between the two of them in the very far future.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, a lot of makeup.
A lot, the fish. My God.
Look like the creature from the Black Lagoon. It's one of those kinds of looks.
Right.
Yeah, and lots of stuff going on. Lots of good stuff. I did a pilot in Atlanta. I've just been to Vancouver a few times to work on a prequel to the show Grease. It's called Rise of the Pink Ladies. So I've been working on that as well. Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Is that a stage thing or a film thing?
No, I think it's on Paramount Plus that will be coming up.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a comment you made a couple of times about fear, like when certain things scare you, I have this kind of philosophy that there are two ways that things scare me: either collapse or expanse. When I have a fear where it's pressure and it's collapsing in on me, I'm like, that's not for me. That's not something. But if I have a fear where I'm like, I don't know where this is headed, it could be, and I've never done this before, then I go towards that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, that's absolutely right. I mean, you don't know where, as artists, we don't know where we're going exactly, in the process. And that's okay. And it is about the journey, and finding things. And it won't always be successful, but the journey was successful. You did learn things along the way, and you did grow as an artist along the way, even if you realize that that's not where my strengths are. I'll never forget one of the guys I worked with who gave me my first job on Broadway, the older actor, Tony Randall. He was in the original production of Inherit the Wind with Paul Muni, the great Paul Muni. And he said every day he would come in to rehearsal with a different look or a different feel. And some days he would, put white streaks in his hair and walk with a stone in his shoe and disheveled clothes, and then very put together and, tie all the way up and make him stand differently. He tried all these different things every day until he weeded out what didn't work and held on to what did for the character of Drummond, the lead character. And he said he wasn't afraid to fail. It was just about the process, just about finding things that sparked his imagination, that made him feel more like the character, homing in on what worked.
Yeah.
And he said it was a real lesson. And it taught me too, that I shouldn't be afraid, and sort of part of you is always performing, when you're in a rehearsal, that everybody's there looking at you, hoping that the show is going well. But that's not what the rehearsal process should necessarily be about. It's okay to fail and try, think, I'm going to try the character this way today. Let's see if it works, if we find something. And that's what he did every day until he found what really worked, what was really important for that character. And I have a lot of respect for that.
That room to explore at a place where you don't feel like you need to have all the answers already and be at peak performance level.
Yeah, that's it.
I had an experience I was actually a musical a few years ago where the director was kind of looking for everybody to be exactly right out of the gate. And so we had to come through some rough waters there to get to a point where I was explaining to him, no, I like to find what I'm doing and make it as organic as possible, or I'm going to end up on that stage not feeling anything and not being connected. And that's going to just domino affect everything else that's going on. And he eventually understood but it took 2 to 3 weeks to where I finally felt like, oh, I've got something here, and brought it out. And he's like, well, why didn't you come with that at the beginning? I'm like, well, I didn't have it in the beginning. I needed to find it, right?
Exactly right. Exactly.
So having that director who supports that decision, I think, is really important.
Yeah. There are only a few that I've ever worked with that really, really do that. Obviously, one that I've worked with many times, Bartlett Shear, has you sit around the table. If it's a 5-week process, he'll have you sit around the table for the first 2 weeks until you go, all right, I just have to stand up. And you start standing up around the table where you have to get up because it necessitates it. Your that need to move forward has to happen. And then he sees that and feels like, oh, you're ready to get up. But when we're at the table, we're discussing all the nitty gritty, all the important things that will spark your imagination, the reasons why you're doing certain things. So you understand everything organically, so you can build on that when you do get up. All the stuff that you said wasn't happening in that rehearsal process, unfortunately. But anyway, that's why I love working with him, because it's such an intellectual effort. Initially, it is almost only that, figuring that kind of stuff out, and that takes you to the next place after that.
I love that you said intellectual effort, but that you also said there's a point in the rehearsal when you just need to get up out of your seat.
Yeah.
That there was I can't remember the guy's name. It's against this teacher I had way back, assigned a book, and that particular book, that teacher, his kind of tagline was, if you feel it, your body will reveal it. And I can't remember who it was, but it took me years to understand that, at least the way my self works, I have to start from a place of understanding it here and breaking it down. And it's not just about, it is about the lines, but it's about like understanding the character and the story and all of that stuff. And then, but it's not until it kind of descends into my body where I'm feeling it like tingle, where I really go, oh, okay, I've got this now. Maybe not 100%, but it's enough for me to finally get up on my feet and go for it. Yeah, right. You know, and it's an interesting place to come from, I think, because a lot of, you know, the old school is that you know, inside out, outside in, and you've got Strasberg and all those people who you gotta, you know, you're working all in here and then it comes
Mhm.
out, and then you've got the outside in where it's like, I'm going to put the character on. I don't think there should necessarily be a distinction between the two. It's kind of like therapy. Find the mix that works for you, and then kind of
I
run.
completely agree. I completely agree. Whatever works. I've been with actors who do every kind of different way and figure it out. There's that old, what is that that story from Marathon Man when Dustin Hoffman was working with Laurence Olivier, and Dustin Hoffman hadn't slept in 2.5 days for this scene, and people always go, oh, you know, and Laurence Olivier said to him, "My dear boy, why don't you try acting?" Um, but that works. That what he's talking about, Olivier, works for him,
Right.
but it would not necessarily work for Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman was doing what worked for him. You can't argue with the fact that they're both fucking great actors.
Right.
Period. You know.
Yeah.
So whatever works, I'm completely in agreement with you, Nick. Whatever works, whatever makes it real and truthful for you, because at the end of the day, that's what all art is, or should be, or can be. Some sort, a real form, a form of reality that sparks some kind of understanding in the viewer, some kind of simpatico, emotional or physical or whatever, and that you know, allows you to gain some kind of insight into your own life, into the world, and hopefully, you know, changes your way of thinking or enlightens your way of thinking, and maybe makes you a better person, maybe makes the world a better place, you know, on and on. That's what great art can do. And we have the opportunity to do that through music, through theater, through drama. And that's why I think, you know, at the end of the day, the arts are vitally important.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That was really well said. And you know, I have 3 kids, and
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, they're all doing great. And during the pandemic, there was this kind of, as things were ramping back up to activity in schools again, the one of the last things to return were the arts. One of the first things to return was, you know, football and wrestling and all of that, and that's fine. It's great. Hey, people, sports people, it's awesome for them. But
Right.
my brother's daughter, who's big in musical theaters, she just graduated high school. My brother and his wife had to go to the school board to advocate for the return of the theater program in the midst of them having every other program up and running, because they kept claiming that, oh, well, theater people are talking right next to each other and it's not safe or something like that. And it was more, to me, just an excuse that, again, you're seeing school systems not valuing the arts.
Yeah,
You know?
it's too bad, because I mean, scientific study after study shows that the arts, you know, can definitely, whether you go into the arts or not, doesn't even matter, but they make the students better students, and more well-rounded and more empathetic and smarter and better listeners, on and on. Which, so it is too bad that they don't actually take it as seriously as they should.
Yeah, and you know, it's a back and forth. It's the same as any kind of you know, development and progress in this world, where it's, you see it happening and then it does this, and then you hope that it comes here again, and you know, nobody really quite knows where we are at this point. But it's to me vital that there are not just artists in the world, because I find that to be extremely vital, and some things that we take for granted, that we don't realize that every single day of our lives, in some form, we are exposed to some art, whether it's background music in a store, or you know, some graphic that somebody did when we're watching even a nonfiction TV show or anything like that. There's just arts everywhere. But then you have artists like, like you or Sondheim, who are also saying, who are advocating for it, whether it's publicly or just within the people that we know, to say it's beyond just a pleasurable experience or something that you can learn from, both of which are extremely important, but it can actually change you as a person and enlighten you and make you better at other things.
Yeah. I agree.
And I have one more question.
Yeah.
And it's just for my curiosity, which
I'm a
is
Gemini. I like long walks on the beach.
okay.
Yeah.
Gemini. How do Geminis and Sagittarius connect? I have no idea. Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I believe that Catherine knows that. I'll have to ask her later, but
Please.
okay. You mentioned, and I think this is something that people might be interested in when they're thinking of kind of career trajectory, but you mentioned that you said you moved back here in 1990. Is that right?
Yeah, from San Diego, from UCSD, where I went to grad.
Right, that's right. And then your breakthrough was Drowsy Chaperone.
Correct.
What did you do in between?
I did a bunch of off-Broadway shows. Tony Randall hired me to do his National Actors Theater, which was a repertory company on Broadway. My first Broadway show was a play called A Little Hotel on the Side, with Tony Randall and Lynn Redgrave and another young guy making his Broadway debut named Rob Lowe. A lot of fun things. I did a great musical off Broadway that I loved called Weird Romance with Alan Menken and David Spencer. They wrote the score. It was the first time that Alan Menken was going back to do a show off Broadway, and it was his first show without Howard Ashman, who had just died. And Ellen Green was in it, and we were at the same place that they did Little Shop of Horrors, the WPA Theater off Broadway. And so it was a big return to theater for Alan. And, getting to work with him and still knowing him as a friend is a sublime thing. And making friends and making connections all along the way, and doing lots of Law and Orders. Loads of them. Thank God for Law and Order and all the residuals over the years, and that kind of thing. Building up my resume, just doing lots of shows here and there. I did the first revival of Company on Broadway in 1995, and that was wonderful. Working with Steve there. Working with Steve before that, I did Merrily We Roll Along off Broadway this time. And that was a lot of fun. And I mean, it was filled with doing lots of work. And I was, extremely, extremely lucky to do some really, really wonderful work and have great teachers. I did an off-Broadway play. It was just a three-hander with Sigourney Weaver and John Lithgow. It was wonderful. Where I was a teacher, and Sigourney came to take my class. It was at the Flea Theater downtown, and then John played her husband, who came to gather her and take her back. Because she shouldn't have been taking a creative writing class. We're upper class, and we don't do this kind of thing. The arts. It was a wonderful A.R. Gurney play. And we premiered that off Broadway, and so many things like that I honestly just have to pinch myself that I've had this lovely, lovely career where I've just kept on working, and under the radar, and happily under the radar, and still. And the only people who really know who the hell I am are the people in my building, maybe my next door neighbors, and and some of the people I've worked with. But other than that, I have a normal kind of a life. And that's kind of all that I ever wanted. When I was a kid, I thought, I don't give a shit about the fame or the money or anything like that. All I want is to just have a normal life like my parents have, with a wife and kids and a car and a home, and to have that kind of normalcy, and then to go to work every night and have the respect of my peers. The rest is all whatever it is, whatever people make up. But for me, I just wanted a normal kind of life. And I've been able to do that for the most part. I mean, life has other plans sometimes, God knows. But other than that, I just wanted to have that kind of a life, a normal, happy life where I was just doing whatever I wanted to do, doing the kind of work that I wanted to do.
It's a great place to be, and a testament to you, really, that you can have such a full and fulfilling career and just be a guy, you know.
Yeah,
You're
that's
not,
it.
I think that is a worthy goal for anyone, really, you know. Well, I have to, is there anything that you would like to leave with the audience, whether it's a thought or a credit or anything like that, or
Gosh, I guess I would just encourage everybody to make, when given a choice, to make the loving choice. And that means being kind first and listening. Everybody has a story. Everybody's coming to the situation from a different place, and you never know who you're going to run into and what their story is. And so when given the choice to say something or do something, let it be the loving choice.
oh man, that might be the best closing answer that I've ever received. So
Good.
thank you for that, and thank you for spending this time with me. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, an honor.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone out there for watching and listening. As always, it was Danny Burstein. I will put some information down there if you want to explore more. And I will talk to you next episode. We are done.
That was great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, man.
You're good at this.
Thanks. Let me stop the recording before we get.
That's all right.
Yeah.